Okay. Am I good? Are we good? Is it online? Uh, okay. I heard that I was just kind of like, you know, anticlimactic start. It's like, oh, look, I'm alive. And what am I doing? It's like I'm a freaking baby coming out of the womb, being like, what's going on? Oh, okay. Hey, everybody. This is Shaban. Turns out I'm alive. What's the delay? I heard that sometimes it's like a 40-second delay or some crazy thing like that. Uh, I guess I'm gonna count like 3, 4, 5. See if any of you can tell me how long it's been. All right, well, I don't want to take up too much of your time. Uh, you know, so this was short notice, and I want to, get straight to what I want to talk about. Okay, thank you, Abig Mate. Is that right? Um, but I guess some of you asked some questions even before we got started. So I want to first just kind of talk a little bit about the state of the channel, a little bit more about myself so that I'm not as much of like kind of this mystery person, so that you know kind of what my motivations are and where I'm trying to go from here. And also to, I guess, if there's time to be able to answer questions that you may have. All right. So it looks like already you got really nice feedback. I don't know if this live like chat is going to be saved or anyway, but I've never done a live stream before. I'm glad that the technology apparently is working to some extent. I'm using OBS Studio. I haven't really done a YouTube video in years now, and I want to, I guess, apologize to all of my supporters, all my subscribers, who have just been like sitting here wondering like, where the heck did he go? Like, what is going on? Um, Pranav or Pranay asks if there are any plans for a series for beginners. Um, I'll answer that question in a minute. All right, and yeah, so much good support. Um, cool, yeah, I really love what you guys are saying. But so just to say a little bit where I'm from, so we have a better idea of like where I'm going with this. Some of you maybe have guessed or something like that with some of your comments in the YouTube videos. But by profession, I teach at a university. Okay, so I teach game programming at a university. And if you kind of look at the timing of the videos, I think some of you might click like, oh yeah, I think I see where this was going. Suddenly the university was like, everybody has to go online, you know? And so uh, I was like, okay, I guess I could do that. But since it was going online and since we had to like, do this thing remotely, I figured, you know what? Why don't I like instead of trying to just do these like, live Zoom things with my class, why don't I just make like some YouTube videos just on my own time and then, have my students watch it, I guess. And if other people benefit, then, that's good. Why not? So I went ahead and did that and I made a couple of these tutorial videos. They weren't very, super well planned. I didn't really know exactly what I was doing. I made that 7.5 hour freaking Godot tutorial, the code architecture tutorial. And like everybody told me, they're like, hey man, if you're gonna go into YouTube, you should do like 10-minute videos, and do all this kind of stuff so that it's well organized and people can, select by chapter. And I was like, you're exactly right. You're probably right, but I'm gonna do it the way that I'm gonna do it, right? The way that I actually am going to do it, because like all those like chapters and things like that, I wasn't really aiming to create this like professional like set of video series or something like that. I was just like, I'm gonna make a video. If people like it, they like it. This is the way I'm gonna do it. Just basically just like blaze through and make this video, just like unrehearsed. And I guess like what the heck? That had apparently a lot of you were okay with that. Maybe it would have been better still to do chapters, but like I don't know. Like this friend of mine was like, "How the heck did so many people watch a 7.5 hour video? That doesn't make any sense. Like you don't deserve this." And I was like, "Deserve what?" Anyways. So I made these lectures for so that um my students would be able to benefit and others would be able to maybe benefit as well. And YouTube was just sending me out stuff. It was like, "Yeah, you want to monetize now? You know, you should hit this button, and then we'll be happy with you." And I was like, "All right, well, I guess so, fine." Um, and then in the next semester is like a term we use to talk about the breakdown of a university schedule. These, I was continuing on. I was like trying some new things. So I actually recorded an interview I had with a professional game programmer who's working at Sucker Punch at the time. I think he probably maybe still is working there. And I asked questions like, what does it take? Like, what do you need to know going into a job interview, with a big game company? Like, what does someone actually need to know? And how much does school matter? And all those types of things. And I wanted to ask these questions. And I was going to have a kind of like an interview series. And in the middle of doing that, my computer just like totally died. I was using a laptop because at the time I was, just going back and forth between different places. I was using this kind of like gaming laptop, is like a Razer, and it died. And I'm not wealthy, okay? I don't have a lot of money. I'm maybe revealing more about myself than I need to. I basically just live as much as I need to be able to support myself and my family. I actually have 4 children, believe it or not. Am I supposed to be telling you all this stuff? And I spend a lot of time with them, and so I like to, spend more time with them than making money, I guess. And so I couldn't just afford to buy another computer right away. Like I had the files, but I didn't have another computer that was like fast enough to really do a lot of the editing stuff that I was doing with those files, and it would have taken a lot of effort to kind of come back in. And I decided, let's just wait for a gaming laptop to go on sale again. Even though like I could build a desktop. I don't know if you remember, but at the time, like there was a chip shortage, and it was actually cheaper to buy a laptop with a similar graphics chip than to buy one of those graphics cards. And like, I don't know, maybe I didn't know what I was doing, but that was my plan. And that was back in like January. I didn't find a deal for a laptop until like that summer, June or July. And by that time, it's like, oh man, like I already had kind of dropped the ball. Like I already like had lost my momentum with the channel, and I hadn't posted a lot of content. I didn't really remember where I was at. I kind of forgot what I was doing with the video editing stuff. And I noticed that a lot of you were kind of sending messages like, "Where are you?" and stuff. And I was like, well, I could jump back into it, but I had already cannibalized my studio. Like my green screen had like been repurposed, like these lights I'd kind of given away. And so I was like, man, I don't know. Like, so it just kind of put it on the back of my mind, partially because at that point I already had other things I was doing. I was back in person with teaching in the classroom. And so I don't know, this is almost sounding like a freaking confessional at this point. Good golly, what am I doing? So I'm gonna stop for a second and look at your comments because like who knows, maybe they're not gonna be relevant in a minute. It was as long as 7 hours is worth it. Okay. Enjoyed how you did it for the Godot 3D code architecture is very coherent. Thank you. A long tutorial about Godot coding was awesome. Then it is time to hustle. Time to hustle is in like, yeah, like that was my opportunity. Yeah, there's a human behind the screen. I'm not an AI. Yeah, I'm for real. Despite that like AI like thumbnail I made with like the laser eyes and stuff. Anyways, so I don't want to go into too much detail because this is about like where I'm going from here, I guess. So it had been a couple years, right? The last video I published was I think December 2020, so it's almost like 3 years now. And so I wasn't making these videos partially because I was out of the momentum. I had moved on to other things. And also partially I wasn't checking YouTube because I don't know, I feel like I would feel bad if I like looked at your comments and you people were gonna say like, oh, where did he go? What's wrong? So I don't know, felt kind of guilty about it. But here's the thing. I had this extremely strange interaction. This is like the weirdest interaction I've had in like a long time, which was that I went in my class, and I think this was like a year ago, and I was like, we're just doing like introductions between students and stuff, and I get more students every year. Like this semester, this fall thing, there are more students than I've had in this class like ever. It's like twice, man. It's crazy. Anyway, but I had a student last year when we were kind of introducing ourselves, and I was like, oh, my name is Shaban, I don't know if any of you know me. And then like someone, and they were kind of looking at me, and one of them was like, "Yeah, I know you." And I was like, "What do you mean you know me? That's kind of creepy and a little weird." And I even asked, I was like, "What do you mean you know me? Like, I'm sorry, but I don't recognize you. I don't like feel like I've seen you in any of my classes before." And the student was like, and if I remember this correctly, the student says like, "Yeah, you're the Tutemic guy." And I was like, "The Tutem what? What do you mean the Tutemic guy? Like, how?" And so that was really trippy. That was like, okay, wait, if it's gotten to the point where like there are students in this small town who've like heard of me from like the YouTube, it's like maybe like I owe it to you folks to, continue making content, right? Um, and so I decided, okay, well, I need to jump back in at some point, whether I like it or not. Yeah, I owe it to everybody. So I figured, like, well, what's the way that I'm going to come back? And that's where I am still trying to figure that out. And I'm hoping that you can help me. So those of you who are here watching this video, I guess you can just leave a comment if you haven't already. If you're not part of this video, you can always like leave a comment about like where I should go from here. And so I have a couple of videos planned that I want to do. I noticed that from the views and the engagement I've had on YouTube, the most popular ones are the Godot ones, right? So Godot ones, I guess there was just that one big Godot tutorial, and it seems like, yeah, maybe that's where most of you are getting value out of this channel. So I figure I'm going to make a couple more of those Godot tutorials. The one that I made with that like extremely long 3D tutorial, it's like version 3 point something or other. It's like, a few years old now. And I feel like that one I can probably update, maybe do a different project, do another one of those kind of long tutorials, but with Godot 4 or 4.1 or 4 whatever, and do one of those. But also as who was it at the beginning here? Pranay says, any plans for a series for beginners? That is what I'm planning to do as my next tutorial. So I created this code architecture tutorial with this 3D Godot thing, but I've also noticed just in general that there's kind of like a missing space where just absolute beginners. Like I know there's some Godot beginner tutorials out there for sure, but when I say beginners, I mean like beginner. Like actually founded a game development camp in my town where I taught teenagers how to make games, and I explored tons of different. This was back in 2013. 2013, yeah. And I explored tons of tools and the different types of things that I feel like someone who has no experience with game development could jump into. And I feel like Godot is as close as we have ever been to an actual code-based solution that a really young or someone who has no experience could jump into. But I've never been satisfied with the resources I found online with tutorials because they're always taught by somebody who is maybe from computer science background. I guess I am too. But there's a lot of assumptions they make about what someone understands, and they choose like routes to, within the tutorials, within their tutorial that like isn't really straightforward and a little bit, I think, counterintuitive to a beginner. So anyway, I actually I was teaching Godot a little bit way back in 2016, 15, 16. Well, it was a long time ago, and Godot was a lot more simple at that time, like more primitive, like there weren't as many features. And I actually built like a library called Go Godot. It might still be somewhere on the internet where I actually like simplified Godot, where like you could just spawn an object by just typing in like the parent that you want on which you want to spawn it dot like spawn object or something. I don't remember what it was exactly. And then you just type in the position right there inside of the function. And so just boom, spawn an object. You didn't have to worry about like adding child. You didn't have to worry about positioning it. You didn't have to worry about loading and all that kind of stuff. And among a bunch of other things like making signals kind of easier where you just basically can just like type a single one-line thing and it connects it to another function. I don't remember, it was a while ago, but the point is that like I'm very interested in the idea of like making these game engines more accessible to people who are very inexperienced or young. And I've mentioned that at different, at the GDC, different conferences and stuff like that. And a lot of people, I'm not going to name any names, but a lot of developers like within the Godot like developer, like the open source developers, they're like, yeah, but then people aren't going to learn like the best practices if you teach them how to do things in a simple way. And I'm like, so, like, they'll learn the best practices with pain. You know, the pain is a great motivator. All right, I'm going off the rails here. I need to kind of come back to the uh, to the topic at hand and where I'm going to go from here. Some of you asked, anywhere you teach fundamentals or good behaviors in programming were my favorite moments. Found those very valuable. I love the code architecture videos too, especially when applied to real game dev scenarios. I don't think you need to feel like you owe us anything. I really appreciate your videos, and I'm reading these out loud in case like this live chat gets destroyed or something like that in the future. But only if it's what you really want. Oh, I feel like Genie at the end of Aladdin. Oh my gosh, spoiler alert, close your ears. Where like no one asks the genie what the genie wants. Anyways, I'm not a genie. Anyway, so I'm happy that you've been well and healthy since your last video years ago. Yeah, I guess it was a conspicuous time for me to disappear. You know, I was like, I hope he's alive. You know, because I've seen that. Like, I saw a couple of YouTube videos online where someone was like, where I've been, but it was like a lot worse. It was like tragic. It's like, I've been in the hospital. And it's like, oh my gosh. So, I don't know. Um, so coming back to what I was saying about where I want to go with this is that, sure, that beginner tutorial that I want to do is going to maybe make a lot of you who want to learn best practices and good code architecture and techniques and things like that, you're gonna be like, I already know all this stuff, and you know what? It's almost like offensive how like, you know, simplistic this tutorial is, or how like you're teaching people the wrong way to do stuff, you know. But the video is not for you, right? The video is would be for someone else, and I plan to then subsequently make another one of these kind of deep dives into code architecture with another kind of interesting game that, you know, we can make together. And I guess together is where I I kind of let the cat out of the bag with what I'm trying to think. Oh my gosh! Look who it is. I don't know how to pronounce your names. Unfa, Unfa. Oh yeah, holy segfault. That's amazing. Hoping the best, almost as important as knowing the best practice itself. Right. I don't know. I'm a little bit unconventional in that way because I'm like the, you know, I'm both poles at the same time, like polar opposites at the same time. I'm both like trying to be like pedantic and teaching you like this is the best way to do things, you know, but also I want to be like, you know what? The best way to learn the best way to do things is to first do it the wrong way, because when you do it the wrong way enough times, you then have a context for why you're doing it wrong. When you just say like, hey, you should always wear a helmet or you should always wear your freaking elbow pads when you're going skateboarding, it's like no one listens to that. But as soon as they fall, then it's like, okay, that's why, right? You there's that saying, I guess, where it's like there are two different type of people who do like some kind of extreme sport, electric unicycle, skateboarding, whatever. It's like the people who wear their pads before their first crash are the ones who wear their pads after the first crash, you know? And so and mostly when it comes to game development with programming, I feel like the best way to learn how to do things the best way is to know why you're doing it the best way. And the best way to know why you're doing it the best way is to feel technical debt, to feel like, oh my gosh, that would be so much better. Yeah. Like I wouldn't have this problem where I am just stuck in this mess of code. So I'm okay with like leading people into that mess of code to some extent, because it's one of those things where it's like an electric bike, where it's like, are you gonna even ride the bike unless it's electric? And then once you ride the bike more and you get more fit, then you feel like, oh, okay, well, I'm still getting exercise. And then you eventually maybe, I don't know. The point that I'm trying to say is that some folks would never even get into programming if they tried to trudge through a lot of this like really, you know, deeper kind of fundamental code architecture stuff and algorithms and data structures is just too much for most people. And you know, a lot of folks who use Godot are designers. Like they don't really care about their code base. And you know, even programmers are designers. They just design code bases. But some people don't want to design code bases. They just want to like make a prototype in a game jam. All right. Okie dokie. The first way is the perfect pronunciation. Okay, so I think it was Unfa. Are you going to continue with only Godot, or could you do some Unreal 5 videos as well? Oh, what a question. All right, hold on. Before I answer that, makes a lot of sense. We'll be tuning into your beginner videos. Okay, awesome. So the format is something that I also want to try something new. I don't know much about YouTube. Okay, so some of you might have to help me with this. Um, with my tutorial, that big like Godot tutorial I did, that was like 7.5 hours long. Like that video is fairly unedited. You know, I just went in, sat down, and I did it at like, I started that video, I think at midnight, like when everyone was asleep, because I didn't want it to like interrupt everybody. So at midnight, and then I did it until like 8 in the morning. It was an all-nighter on that silly video. If it looked like I was really tired, well, it was because it was like midnight to 8 in the morning. Um, but so the point is that like if I'm already doing my videos that way, then like there's not a lot of added benefit of pre-recording it, right? Like I can put that little splash screen at the beginning. Maybe you can even do the splash screen at the beginning with what is it called? With the like a live stream. Gosh, I could have been doing my little like whiteboard thing the whole time. Okay, shield your eyes. Oh gosh, too late. Your eyes are already going to be ruined. Just like put the whiteboard thing on. Um, and what I'm trying to say is that like, why don't I just live stream the tutorials? You know? Okay, this now that I saw what I did to your eyes, I'm going to turn that off. Sorry. Um, I'm thinking like, why don't I just live stream the tutorial? Because if I live stream the tutorial, it's not that much different than what I was doing already. I already kind of am doing it unrehearsed. And in fact, a lot of the comments that I read on the channel, and you folks leaves the nicest comments. It's like amazing. Like everyone says like people online are so mean and awful and bullies and terrible. And maybe that's true in some spaces, but in this space, like I was shocked. You know what I mean? I came in feeling like I am going to hate myself with the comments that people are going to leave. But no, everybody leaves really nice comments. And one of the comments, like a few of the comments some of you would leave would be, you know what? Like I like that you are doing this video in like a natural way where you make mistakes. Like you make mistakes, and then once I've made the mistake, I like kind of I have to fix the mistake, and I don't like, turn it off, redo. This time I'm not going to make a mistake. Instead, I was just like, I'm just going to fix the mistake in front of everybody. And maybe that's partially out of laziness, but it's also just kind of, I don't know, like it wasn't just accidental. I do feel like there is some benefit in me demonstrating like that I'm a human being, that programmers are mortal, that we make mistakes, all the time. And I kind of like that. And your feedback has fortunately, vindicated that belief of mine. And so if I'm already going to be doing something that's mostly unedited and making mistakes in front of everybody and that kind of stuff, why don't I just do a live stream? You know, I don't know if that like what that means in terms of engagement, in terms of like the algorithm, and whether a recorded live stream that has been finished is something that YouTube even puts in their like search rankings or something. So I'm not sure what to do. I can always hit record and then just like re-release it as like a not pre-recorded live stream. If that makes sense, like I can record and live stream at the same time and then like turn off the live stream and then just post the recorded one or something. I don't know. If someone can help me with that, I'm happy to have any advice on that front. But I think that maybe that would work. So the beginner tutorial, I'm planning on it being live streaming. And if that works, the like longer, bigger 3D, the replacement tutorial. And again, I think someone said, don't get rid of it. Yeah, okay, I'll keep it. But the kind of successor to that video, I think I'm also going to live stream it for like 7 hours. I'm not sure how, because there's going to be like noise in the house, but I'll give it a shot. Give it a shot probably, and see how that turns out. Because then you can ask questions like in the middle of the live stream. You can be like, "Hey, why did you do it that way?" Or you can even help me figure out what I've done wrong or something like that. You can, say like, "Hey, there's another thing you could do, and like you could do this and whatever." And we can then have that encased in this, live stream that everyone can benefit from. I think I've rewatched that 7 hour tutorial a few times. Oh my gosh, that's what? That's amazing. I feel like if that video was like a game on Steam, it would say, like, number of hours played. It's like, wow, I did better than some of these indie games. All right, that's why I later learned, because you said code architect, because you said in Godot architecture a lot because I also resorted to bad practice at first. Yeah, honestly, those unedited 7.5 hour videos with just teaching someone who knows what they're doing are the gems I hope finding on YouTube these days. I haven't really been looking at the other, like, I don't know what, because if so many people watch this video, I don't know if other folks have done the same thing, have been like, hey, let's just pick up where Tutemic has left off, and maybe there's other videos out there. I haven't really checked the landscape recently, so maybe I'll see what other folks have been doing. I have a few years of experience doing education about making music with free and open source software. I'd be glad to share that with you. Hey, yeah, why not? That, you know, more the merrier. There really is a lot of benefit from it because it shows how edited videos often do not show, how to even find out if something goes wrong and how to fix it. I think that'd be an interesting idea. Upside, you can respond to people's input. Downside, you might get distracted by people's input and go on a huge tangent. That's true. Like what's going on right now? Like what's going on right now? Like this was supposed to be just like a couple minute video. Like it turned into this. But how many people are going to be really watching the video though? You know what I'm saying? Like a 7 hour video. Like who's going to camp with me on that quest? Like wow. I doubt I'm going to have more than like a couple viewers. Who knows? Good point though. Funny, I'd also watch the 7 hour videos a few times more. My concerns are that too many questions might derail a live stream tutorial, but I think it's worth trying out and seeing how it goes. I think in this format, when I'm talking about like, wait, what am I supposed to do? Help me out. That's like the point of this particular video. I think that the whole point of it is to be derailed by questions. But you're right. And so developing the restraints so that I don't go off the rails too much. Because you know what? Like, that's part of the advantage of videos. You can hit rewind. So if I try to explain something and someone jumps in and is like, hey, hold on, like I didn't get it because they didn't even, like they came in halfway through, or maybe English isn't their first language or something like that, maybe they need to just rewatch that portion. And so I don't need, like, it's just gonna make it worse for everybody if I just like, okay, hold on, let me just re-explain this. Like that's just gonna wreck it. So you're right. I think that's a good point. Your 7.5 Godot tutorial made me understand what to do with engines like Godot and Unity. It taught me right paradigm, and I would love to watch even more if you record more. Cool. Absolutely. It feels like you want to make this tutorial more like a class in person, which is interesting. I also think going to a class is better because you get to see the mistake fixes and comments. Yeah, right. That's kind of the idea. And, like I confess that I am a teacher, right? If you missed the beginning of this like live stream, I teach. Oh yeah, so one of the things that I guess I have to say is that I'm not sure how much longer I'm going to be teaching though. Like I've been teaching as a instructor of record at the university since fall 2015, and it's not that I'm just like ready to do something else. I think my family wants to move away. That's a whole separate story. I don't have to go too personal on that. And so if I'm going to be going somewhere else, I might not even be teaching anymore. I'm not sure. But I can still do these Tutemic videos. In fact, that might free me to do the Tutemic videos more because if I'm already teaching the stuff in the classroom live in person, I'm not going to stream that to YouTube. Like that's probably illegal. I mean, not illegal, but there might be some kind of privacy violations and stuff like that. I wouldn't do that. But by not teaching, then I'm, effectively shifting the classroom to online. And so I don't know. I'm not sure actually where my life's going to take me next. Like, I'm not even sure what my next employment would be. I just know that for the sake of my family, I'm not going to stick around forever because, like, this is where I'm at. Like, I'm also partially teaching at the university because there's just not a lot of game programmers who are willing to teach. And so they're like, we need you. I'm like, oh man. So I'm partially teaching because I feel bad to leave. If you have a strict plan of what you want to do, maybe it's better to record and upload. But if you want to mess around with the topic and explore different implementations, live stream format seems perfect. I think maybe as I get more experienced with this, I can know kind of how to keep things on track, not get too sidetracked with some of the kinds of questions that are being asked in the live stream. Just kind of have that discipline. Once a teacher, always a teacher. There's some truth to that. You to say, I don't think that's your birth name, is it? But anyways, and it's true. Like whenever I do anything, when I learn anything, like I think this is just something that teachers do. there's like some part of their brain that is like doing kind of like, that game, what is it called? Braid, where it's like constantly saving every, the state of the game every tick. It's like I'm remembering back, like, okay, the moment, that epiphany that I had where I learned it and I understood it, and like I'm like retracing it. I'm keeping my breadcrumb trail so that I can figure out like, well, what was that like going from not knowing to kind of knowing to knowing and then to knowing really well. And knowing that breadcrumb trail makes it easier for me to empathize with what the students are going through and to have a better sense of the direction that I need to go with teaching it. So that's, I guess, generally the idea. My case was I have to watch a few more times to understand your message clearly, not the language issue. Some of your messages, while more delicate than how to make a platformer in Godot. Right, exactly. I don't like that particular style, not to disparage anybody else who's making tutorials on the internet. It's just not my style. I don't like the whole like, we're gonna make some kind of game together. So go ahead and click this button and then open this thing and then type this code here. And while that's a lot more efficient, you're able to make some kind of program like really fast, and you're able to do that. Maybe some people like that. I personally don't get behind that because like you have no idea why they're doing the things they're doing. They're just like, do this, do that, do this, do that. I'm like, what? This isn't. So I don't do that. I don't like to do that. And if you do prefer that style, then I guess you probably can find another teacher. I taught at uni a few times. I still love to over-explain things to colleagues. Yes. Right. Um, so yeah, so going forward, I think what I'm planning to do, and it's going to depend on the comments, the feedback, and the engagement I have in YouTube. I think I'm just going to do, for the time being, just like at one of these kinds of tutorials every regular intervals and period of time to do these tutorials. Um, I'm not sure if that's the best way to do it. I know I've already done a bunch of these kind of like like concept lectures where I talk about a particular thing. And I can still do that, especially if I feel like it's, relevant to some kind of new thing or maybe something I haven't covered before. But a lot of those concepts lectures are written in a way, and by written, I mean like I made them in a way that like they aren't engine specific or they're supposed to be more timeless, something that you can continue to watch and it'll still be relevant. And I don't know how I'm going to get over that hump because I feel like a lot of YouTube channels, they can kind of burn out because they have run out of things to do, and so they just kind of like redo the same video again and again and again. And I know that sounds kind of like uh, I don't know, it's hypocritical almost because I'm a teacher and I do that all the time. I just teach the same thing over and over. Um, but I'm not sure how I'll feel about that. I do like to design games too, so I'm feeling that making these tutorials um, will allow me to flex that a bit, to not flex, but to kind of scratch that itch so that I can make a bunch of like silly games with everybody. Like if I'm gonna make like a little silly prototype type of game, I might as well just make it live, right? And talk about my procedure and like how I'm doing it, right? I guess that's the idea. Uh, okay, without personal horrible mistakes, I do not think I would understand your video at all. Yeah, see? I gotta make mistakes to be comprehensible. I do hate tutorials that tell you what to do without explaining why. My educational work was always about doing it better, show the possibilities and reasons for choosing different solutions, etc. Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. It's like I feel like there's a consensus that that's like, just telling people what to do rather than explaining what it is that you're doing is not like the best strategy, but the best way to do it. But I think that just, when you browse YouTube and it says like how to make XYZ game and you see that the video is only like 10 minutes long, it's like, wow, that's easy. I want to do that. And maybe some people, they do know what they're doing. They really do. They're just jumping between engines and they just want to quickly see the kind of the different terminology, the workflow and this kind of stuff, and they can very quickly pick up what they're seeing, and they're not trudging through a lot of beginner explanations. So I think there is kind of a place for it. But I struggle to do, like, I don't think I could do it. I don't think I could do it. Speaking of different engines, I think one of you asked earlier, yes, Robbie, thank you, asked like, are you going to continue only using Godot, or are you going to do some Unreal 5 videos as well? I don't know if I want to reveal too much about myself, like, my politics and stuff like that. So I'll just be careful, I suppose. Um, I've chosen Godot for these tutorials so far, mostly because it seems that, the Unity video that I created, basically the parallel video that I made for Unity, just hasn't gotten nearly as much traction. Maybe it's because it's not as good. Frankly, it's possible. Um, but just by, definitely the Godot material seems to be, the material that has the most traction. And so it makes sense for me to just keep going down that path. But the other issue is that the engines themselves. And so, I respect anybody who wants to use Unity. Absolutely. It's an awesome engine. A lot of really cool games are made with it. I personally I don't feel very comfortable installing it on my machine anymore. I could install it on like a separate, just like Tutemic machine. Again, I don't have a lot of money. Like right now, I'm recording this with a phone. Like there's a phone camera that I'm recording this. I have a sheet behind me. It's like basically a bed sheet that's like, clamped to the ceiling. It's just, again, maybe I'm revealing more than I need to. I could probably invest in better equipment. Like the microphone I'm using is like a cheap freaking like lav mic I bought for like, I don't know, $20. Anyway, I could get better equipment probably, but coming back to what I was saying about the engine is that Unity, like in their recent partnerships with like malware companies and stuff like that, and just some of the direction that they've taken, I don't really want to go into that much. And so again, if I'm making the channel for me and my viewers, I want it to be something that we're both comfortable with. Like you know what I mean? Right now, I don't feel very comfortable making Unity tutorials, but Unreal, um, I also have a lot of experience with Unreal. I've made a bunch of different Unreal projects for a variety of different things, and I really do enjoy using Unreal. So I think that that's something that's worth considering, especially since Unreal having a kind of like a code-free like blueprint system does make 3D games more accessible to non-programmers, and that is kind of exciting to me. I have a lot of experience with the blueprint system, and I'd love to go over it and teach it. Um, but my time is spread across like the things that I'm doing. If I'm making a Unreal tutorial, I don't want to make it sound zero sum, but like if I'm gonna make a tutorial like once a month or whatever the frequency is, I might like, sacrifice a Godot tutorial for that particular span of time. I don't know. But I'm definitely willing to consider it because like I don't know the best practice for YouTube. Like I've made a bunch of different um, you know, instructional material in a variety of different places, including web development, PHP, Node.js, React. Um, when you teach at the university, you teach what they need you to teach, right? And so, like, and I was thinking like, okay, well, it is Tutemic. It's not like Godot Tutemic, right? It's just Tutemic. I could make like a React Native series on how to, develop and deploy apps to a mobile marketplace. But then I was like, people are gonna be like, what the heck? And I'm wondering, like, if I do that, if I start splitting my content, then am I splitting the viewers too? Where they're like, wait, this is an Unreal channel, unsubscribe, or this isn't what I'm interested in, or I don't know the best practice. Like I could just make this like expand the channel a bit more so that there is like a web development series, like a mobile app development series, Unreal development, Godot development, and that kind of thing. Possibly, but I've been a little nervous to do that because I don't want to, become too unfocused and have you subscribers, wonderful supporters, feel kind of like that this channel is not very, is not specific to their needs. Okie dokie. Just tuned in. Don't know what you did talk about already, but I really love your multiple hour-long videos. You like came in like to just like, to reaffirm the thing I was just saying. It's like, I'm thinking about doing more, ridiculously long videos, except this time I'll live stream them. you know, Programming features is one thing, but structuring these things in a big game is hard. Yes, things with open source software is unlike commercial software. The time you invest in the software is nearly never lost. Open source software is one of the reasons I chose Godot engine to begin with. So yeah, it sounds like, you know, the subscribers that have come to this cause, to this Tutemic channel, are those who share like a similar set of principles to some extent, right? Like I'm using OBS Studio. I like get the most traction here with Godot and that kind of stuff. And so yeah, like I support that stuff. I guess OBS Studio has nothing to do. Like you have no idea what, like that doesn't matter. But for you as a viewer. But the point is that yeah, if I now have gotten a bunch of people who are like all about Krita and open source software like Godot and stuff like that, and I'm like, now we're going to make an Unreal tutorial. They're like, what? You've betrayed the cause. I don't know. I'm kidding. Maybe I'm overthinking it. I think Godot is rapidly growing, excited community that is very hungry for good learning resources because there still aren't enough of those. Commercial software has a lot of benefits, but also comes with risks, rarely talked about. Just see Autodesk's habit of axing software. Yes, exactly. Oh my gosh. I also I have weaned off of the Adobe train. It was tough because once you learn the like Adobe way of doing stuff, it's like tough to transition. But I've transitioned, fortunately. Wow. Yeah, so I guess that is another thing because when you get too invested in a software that can just be bought and just like destroyed, it's heartbreaking. Also, I think a lot of single devs or small indie teams start learning about Godot and find out that it fits their needs better than what they've been using before. It's a growing market. Yeah, I didn't know this video was just going to become like a Godot praise fest. Godot is also designed very well. Other engines feel like 10 different programs held together by duct tape. Yes, they do. Well, that's because, I don't know if any software is entirely impervious to it. You have this problem where trends, happen. Like there are trends in software. There's trends in various markets, and people want to capture those trends. And so when you've developed software to a particular style or trend or whatever it was, and then it's like, uh-oh, things are now different. It's like you have to band-aid on this new thing, right? Like old chat software was just like single thread, like you just have like, people chatting, and then someone introduced the idea of threads. And I'm not talking about multi-threaded software. I'm talking about like threads inside of a chat application. And then all the chat applications are like, we got to add threads to our chat application. And the way they add it is just, usually going to end up feeling a little just bolted on there because it's like, that's not how it was. Like you had, it wasn't built around the idea of threads. So now it's it's not very natural. And I don't know if Godot is entirely impervious to it. I think the way that Godot is made makes it more resistant to that because the node system is so modular. It's not just shoehorned in. I mean, it's not like too invested in a particular paradigm, right? The whole like game object thing with Unity, I feel like has kind of bitten them where they've tried to move away from the game object, and that kind of like alienated a lot of their developers. And so they're like, oh, well, we still are doing the game object, but we're also doing this data-driven thing. And now it's just very confusing because you have entirely different kind of development modes, and people are doing tutorials within each of these different modes using the same versions of the software, and it can get very confusing. And so Godot, I feel like just its nuts and bolts make it a little bit more resilient, but again, I don't think it's impervious. There might be, who knows what's around the corner, and Godot is probably going to try to pivot a little bit, and who knows. But also, I fully agree with your ethic considerations for software you build on top of it. I don't want to get too political though, right? I don't want to say like, hey, Unity's bad, evil, terrible software, company or something like that. But I do personally just don't feel very comfortable installing it on my machine. It's not because of some kind of like message I want to send to my viewers. And if someone's influenced by that, even if it's indirectly or transitively by the fact that I'm not doing it and you're a subscriber, okay, that's fine. But yeah, I don't want to alienate people by my personal uh, political or ethical types of convictions. All right, very cool. 100% doing free and open source software stuff, and I've dedicated myself to it for better and for worse. I love Unfuz's commentary here. It's awesome. Especially, like, yeah, especially Unity these days. I think, yeah, you're responding to like the whole like held together by duct tape now. Yeah, Unity's been around since what, like 2005. I guess Godot has too. Yeah. So, oh yeah, Unity especially looks like patchwork. Robbie says, "Am I the only person in the world who doesn't like Godot?" What are you doing? Are you like a double agent? What are you doing? Like, not a very good double agent if that's the case. You're like you came in here and you just admitted it. Yeah, you cannot like Godot. I'm totally yeah, that's awesome. We have diversity. Yay, it's good. Uh, Godot isn't for everybody, you know. So and I I think that just you know makes like the whole like competition of ideas just allows us to make better software, you know. So very cool. Is there anything you miss from Unreal or Unity? Well, I do still use Unreal occasionally because Unreal is able to, at this point, you're able to create more like photorealistic stuff a lot easier than you can with Godot, at least in my experience. It has also better feature support for things like LiDAR and other, types of external data formats and stuff like that. So in some cases, it's like I don't really have much of a choice. And absolutely, I feel like Unreal, there's a lot of really cool things about Unreal. Unfortunately, there's also a lot of really strange things about Unreal. Like it's puzzling why they did it the way they do. Um, but Unity, sure. I mean, like the I don't want to turn this into just kind of like what's my opinion of each engine, but yeah, each engine has its advantages and disadvantages, and there's just such a huge Unity community, which is super awesome. But Godot is just growing every day, so I don't know. Um, Absolutely not. Maybe or a rare case of a person who isn't obnoxious about it. Right, that's right. I feel Unreal especially will fill a very different space. Yeah, just look at the video production they're doing lately. High-end production, it's just no way around Unreal. Yeah, I mean, just like you can make videos in Unreal. Like I know you can kind of do that with Godot, but like with Unreal, it's crept into spaces that's incredible. Like you're able to like make like a full movie, like a Pixar film or something like that in Unreal. You know what I mean? Like a real time rendered like full film production. It's amazing what you can do with Unreal. And I think there's just so many different ideas out there that Unreal has opened that we haven't even seen yet, you know. Um, and you really should keep your tabs open, like especially in the visualization space. There's going to be stuff with Unreal that's just amazing. But Godot, I love how it just democratizes game development. The GD script is so basic. It's so, simple. Uh, and I love that. And it's so flexible too, like for any variety of different people. And it to me is the closest engine there is, and I had mentioned it earlier in the stream, to being something as like that transition between non-code game programming, such as using Scratch or what is it, gdevelop or construct or something like that, to working in code and having more power. And so I think that Godot is like being that bridge will just make the community explode. Like there's just gonna I feel like once we have that and once the word gets out and once we have the content for people to be able to make that jump seamlessly, that's where I think that things will really take off. Um, but anyways, I feel Unreal is better to do. I think the coolest thing in Unreal is the Quixel bridge, 16,000 or more free materials model. Yeah, just the amount of like support they have, sponsorships, the things that they have, it's just incredible. Like just sheer amount of in the marketplace. Godot, that's one of the big lacking things with Godot. There's just not really a marketplace. So someone who wants to be able to like monetize some kind of plugin, some kind of, types of asset packs that are just like ready to go in Godot or something like that. There's just not, as far as I know, and like correct me if I'm wrong, it's just not even within the same ballpark of competition with Godot, with Unreal or Unity. And I think that would attract a lot of developers, especially for an open source project. It would be really interesting, like creating basically different skins over Godot, for more advanced or for less advanced users. Maybe even someone who wants to give their go at a visual scripting system that is more intuitive to beginners. Someone who wants to be able to do that and monetize it. Basically like Construct for Godot, like event sheets in Godot, where someone can do that and find some clever way to be able to interface with the programming or the scripting platform. That would be really interesting, but I don't think that it's not as easy to be able to create something like that and market it. Um, I would love GDScript with static typing. Yeah, you're back. Hey, Friendly Fox. Oh, that was such a friendly thing to say. Friendly Fox. That's a clever name. Also, Godot is lightweight enough to also do UI applications. That's true, which is super awesome. I don't think people in operating system communities would be interested in a marketplace. Open source communities, not operating system communities. Oh, yeah, I see what you're saying. It seems kind of like counter to the whole idea of free and open source, that we have a marketplace where people are selling stuff. Um, I guess so. I think that it's kind of a strange line to walk, but I think that there is some space available for people to create, and it doesn't even necessarily have to be like software. It could be, you know, assets and things like that. And while you can buy assets and then use them in a variety of different engines, some of the kind of work requires you to use the digital content creator to like make sure that it's facing the right direction, that the import settings are correct and things like that. Like for example, if someone wanted to make a software that allowed you to bridge SketchUp exports to Godot, that would be really, I think that could be very powerful, right? Because SketchUp is similar to Godot in that it helps to democratize something that otherwise is a very difficult field to approach, the idea of 3D modeling. But some people just want to be able to create like a little sketch of a little remodeling project they want to do in their house. And like, how are they going to do that? Well, I guess they can use one of their like phone apps to kind of do one of those things. Maybe they need a little bit more than that. And they want to maybe bring it into Godot. Maybe there's some interesting, levels that they want to create. And they feel like the Godot editor is lacking in terms of, you know, blocking out levels or something like that. And they're really familiar with SketchUp. And currently, it's just like, it's very difficult to take some SketchUp export and bring it into Godot. You have to then like take it into Blender and then like do a bunch of stuff to be able to make it so that it can be digested properly. I'm just giving an example where if someone created some kind of bridge between SketchUp and Godot, they could make that open source. That would seem to vibe with the mission of free and open source. Um, but that person maybe wants to sell it, right? And I don't think that there's anything particularly wrong with that either. But by that person selling it, they're now attracting more people to Godot as well. So I I don't know. I don't think it's exactly black and white. Biggest struggle in Godot is coding shaders. Very few tutorials out there, and most of them are very basic, which could that's true. That is true. It's Unreal. It's hard to compete with Unreal's material editor. Oh my gosh. I mean, yeah, and then there's also the marketplace for tools like, being able to use a variety of different shader solutions and technologies. Godot also is a little bit light on those things. So I'd love the ecosystem to develop further. Which Godot version we'll be using on the future videos, 3.5 or 4.1? Unless like just everybody comes in here and is like, use 3.5. My plan is to use the newest stable version of Godot for each of my tutorials. Just because, I don't know, I figure that that's just the most up-to-date thing. It will then make the videos that I'm making more up-to-date as well. The thing about that is like this like version 3 video that I made, that big tutorial, the stuff I teach in it is still relevant for the most part. Just there's a couple of things that have been updated with Godot 4 on how you do certain things, and that could be enough to just like totally throw you off. So having that helps, But I think just seeing like, oh my gosh, this video is like version 3 is enough of a deterrent that a lot of people would just be like, I'm not watching that video. So even if it's entirely superficial and like not any changes have happened, like breaking changes to the tutorial have happened, it just itself is a psychological deterrent where someone's like, oh, I'm going to be getting old stuff. So um, I'm probably going to just use the most recent version for that reason alone, if for nothing else. I'd currently developing an Android app in Godot. It may not be ideal compared to something like Flutter, but I don't like learning a whole new tool set. Right. People don't like to do that. When you once you learn one tool, I think that that's generally what people want to do is like, how can I use the tool that I already know into kind of uh, another kind of market, industry, or whatever it might be. And I mean, that's why JavaScript everywhere is such a thing, right? Where JavaScript is the most popular programming language, it works in all the web browsers. So many people know JavaScript. And now that everybody knows JavaScript, it's like, well, I don't want to learn a new language. So instead of learning a new language, let's just make JavaScript do everything. you know, it's a similar kind of thing, right? So once you know Godot, it's like, why do I need to now learn all this other stuff to make a mobile app, right? If I know how to make an app in Godot, why don't I just use Godot to make the app? Exactly. So that's a totally reasonable conclusion, I guess. I think it'd be generally beneficial to the Godot users and developers to have a way of distributing paid extensions for it. I wouldn't use it, but I also don't use C#, and some people use it a lot. Yes, that's well said. I generally would agree with you as well, because it's heartbreaking again to invest in some kind of product. It's like financially too, and it just like doesn't have support and it falls away, and like now what the heck? And you can't do anything. Like you can't then take the code and like continue to update the things you need to do yourself. Version 3.5 is all you need. Godot 4 destroyed the tile map from a simple tool to some massively over-engineered nonsense. Huh, that's interesting. I haven't heard that before, But then again, like I haven't kept too much in touch with all the different, conversations in the community. I'm planning to kind of get back into that. Um, wow, 3.5 is destroyed. Godot 4 destroyed something. I haven't heard that. I'm using 3.5, but you should use the most up to date because a lot of people are using that. Use what works for you. If the tile map doesn't work, why use it? I have even asked the godlike chat GPT and it told me the feature was cut out. Custom transforms. I haven't used the tile map system since Godot 3, so I don't know. Maybe they did something weird. But I feel like, again, if the community generally agrees that something's off, then I don't know, maybe I'm giving them too much credit. Like, I think it's just going to split the community. I think that there's probably people who love the new tile map thing, and there's people who don't, and that's too bad. I'm not sure what to do about that. Huh, that's a good point. 2D tile map to be exact. Right, there's a 3D tile map system? I didn't even know. All right, very cool. I know we've like kind of turned this into just a bunch of like conversations about tools and stuff like that. I'm probably going to sign off here in a couple of minutes just so that we can round it out to a clean hour um, long chat. So again, to recap, um, I currently teach at a university. That's why I got into Tutemic. My computer died in the middle of that whole process. I fell out of momentum. My studio got cannibalized, and I fell out of touch with the whole YouTube thing. I'm interested in maybe coming back and making tutorials, but I don't know exactly what that'll look like. So those of you made it to this point in watching this, like as a reminder, like if you weren't part of this live stream, please do leave comments about different ideas you have based on the things that I've said. I'm not even sure what like my employment is necessarily going to be, in the near, however, long-term thing. And I'm not banking on this like Tutemic channel paying the bills. Like I don't expect that to happen. I would mostly be doing this Tutemic thing because if I'm not going to be teaching anymore, I love teaching. I want to provide that value to people. And a lot of people have told me that they enjoy my teaching just in person too at the university. Like I get a lot of positive feedback about it. And so I feel like, you know, I it's almost like my responsibility. I need to keep teaching. I enjoy doing it and so on. So if this can be that me mechanism, I'm okay with that, even if it's mostly just volunteer time. So ideas about, any variety of different things, I'd be more than happy to receive them. Uh, Let me check. Like I wrote the shortest bit of notes to make sure I didn't. Nope. Oh yeah, an idea of live streaming. If this is going to work, we're going to see it. I'm going to try to do live streaming with my tutorials. I don't know. So I'm just going to look at the last couple comments. Thank you so much. Highly appreciated. Keep teaching Godot. All right, well, I think we're out of time. I am so happy with all of you who joined this live stream. I was like half thinking nobody was gonna join because it's like in the middle of a Saturday, and I just was like 1 hour, like short notice here. Come on, we're gonna do a live stream. So seeing that a good number of you jumped in and wanted to take this time, like that's even more encouraging. It makes me feel, because I don't want to do this if nobody's gonna like care or watch. So you really do give me the, what is it, the wind in my sails. So appreciate it. I appreciate all the support. Um, you really helped me make this channel. You've made this channel grow, and you've given me the motivation to continue. So thank you so much. I guess the last question: any plan for Udemy courses? I don't know. I can't live stream a Udemy course. Maybe, I don't know. Whatever. Say those kinds of ideas in the chat. You know, we'll see. Thank you. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your life, I guess. I don't want to say weekend because who knows when you're watching this. Yeah. Cheers, and wishing everybody peace.